Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is January the 19th, 2018. Strong hand. That's all I have to say about this week. You needed a strong hand. All right. We're going to jump right into this. Tawanda Kembo from Zimbabwe has not joined us yet. He'll join us in the middle of the show, hopefully. But for now, we've got the great Andy Hoffman coming in from Colorado and Crypto DeMedici. The legend of Twitter is back on the show, and he's joining us from the East Coast near New York City. So the big story of the week, obviously, has been the crazy price jump down. I've had a strong hand. It hasn't bothered me, but it's bothered a lot of people who are short-term thinkers. Andy Hoffman, what are your thoughts? Did you have a strong hand? And where do you see this thing going?
Well, yeah, I have a strong hand. I mean, my Bitcoin is stored away where it'd be very difficult for me to deal with it. And why would I want to sell? I mean, we're down 50%. And I put out a tweet the other day. I said, this is by far the biggest plunge in percentage terms that I've dealt with in the past 2.5 years, but it's the only one that's not accompanied by really any FUD at all. I mean, South Korea, it's not even anything. Every other time we've had much smaller ones, there were definitely things to be worried about, whether it was, Bcash trying to usurp Bitcoin or split the network, or China's banning Bitcoin back when we thought that those kind of things could matter. Now, no fear at all, just annoyance. But look, the reason we had the biggest plunge, is 50% plunge, is because it was the biggest increase. I mean, if you look at, I have my Bitcoin roller coaster chart. I put it in a bunch of articles that I've done. It's a rolling table of all the corrections. And we've had our, 30% plus corrections in 2017 alone, a year where we went up 1,300%. But this one was, 50%. The thing is, though, that the jump preceding it was 250%. So all we've really basically done is have a technical correction. The reason that it went up as much as it did, as bullish as everything that drove it, particularly the locking in of SegWit and then the Bcash fork failing to split the network, is because of altcoin speculation. And we've seen it in every market in history. We've seen it in the real estate markets 10 years ago. We saw it in the dot-coms 20 years ago, and many other circumstances throughout history. People come in, as you call them, the 80%, and they just start speculating on everything. And especially now that, we talked about the wall of institutional money coming in, and they came in, and it turns out they're just as much amateurs as the 80% that are in it already, buying up all this crap, and they probably will buy it up again. But we got way overbought. We had a big correction, and there's going to be ramifications when we have the next run up. But for now, strong hand. It's not even needed. There's no worry at all.
That's the attitude to have. That's the attitude I definitely have. I want to remind everyone that the links to these guys are below. You can check out CryptoGoldCentral.com. Obviously, Andy's Twitter, Crypto DeMedici. He's got a great Twitter. Crypto DeMedici, what do you think? It's not just Bitcoin that went down. Everything went down. What's behind it for you? Did the BitConnect people spook the market a little bit? What do you think?
Well, I'm in the same camp as Andy in the sense that the market just went up an insane amount, and so it had to correct eventually. And so we saw that with Bitcoin in the beginning, and alts got some power to run up after Bitcoin kind of started going down a bit. But then alts also went up way too fast and way too quickly, and a lot of projects went up that shouldn't have gone up. So we saw the correction, the whole market-wide correction that was necessary. It was very bloody, but it was necessary to have, and I think it's going to be good that we had it this early in 2018. So it gives kind of the market more time to breathe and makes it ready for a great year. But I think the reason was just that the market had gone up too fast, too quickly. and so the market just naturally reacted to the increase in price by going down, and also the fact that the crypto markets are so illiquid just makes these the market is very fickle, which makes it less devoted to most of these alt projects, which obviously makes people weaker, and so they're more likely to sell their assets. And also the fact that it's illiquid makes it even worse. So that's why we see such huge volatility with these numbers going up and down, because it's mostly speculation, and two, the market is just not able to handle that type of speculation.
Excellent. I like how you said let's get this thing out of the way early in 2018. That's definitely a good way of looking at it.
And let me add to that as it turns out, the crypto market, or Bitcoin, because there wasn't much of a crypto market until very recently, has bottomed each year in January, in the middle of January, for each now of, assuming this year, the 4 years, 15, 16, 17, 18. So there's definitely a seasonal pattern. And in this particular case, look, we talked about the wall of institutional money starting back, I think it was October, when Brian Kelly was on your show. And back in September, I wrote about how the budgets for spending on crypto were going to explode. And so there was a ton of people front running that throughout the fall, especially after SegWit got activated. You had kind of the double boost, and then you had the futures. There was this hype about, and it's justifiable hype about how the CME futures were going to be in play at the end of December. Whether you think futures are a good thing or not, the fact is it definitely legitimizes Bitcoin. And so you had a massive amount of year-end front running, and you throw in the Santa Claus rally, which is just it's a game that Wall Street has been playing for a century, of running things up at the end of the year to get bonuses. So everyone wants things to go up at the end of the year, and all those factors combined to make for a massive bull run, unlike anything even I've seen during the dot-coms. The thing is, though, Medici's using that word projects, and that's a justifiable use of the term, because altcoins, generally speaking, as a group, are trying to create new things for the ecosystem. But where I disagree is when that word is used as a blanket, because from what I saw in the dot-com era and participated in as a analyst / banker at Solomon Smith Barney on Wall Street, is that the vast majority, and I'm talking about vast majority, of altcoins are not projects at all, but vast money grabbing. I won't even call them pump and dumps. They're pumps. The people who do them may not think they're going to dump, but they certainly do every single time. Because you look at the crypto dividends in particular, where everyone's just like, let's just fork it off, change one thing, and that they're going to all sell all those things the second they can. You know that Bitcoin holders are desperate to sell them. We're going to talk about Brhodium in a second, though, which is the complete opposite, because there are a handful of altcoins that actually are projects that have use cases, that have long-term viability, that they're still going to have to fight uphill to survive. But I would say most altcoins are complete crap, and they're only there for pumping and dumping.
Excellent point there. And I like how you brought up the season. I hadn't thought about the seasonal patterns, that this happens every January. Well, there's some insights. So pound that like button. We got 100 live viewers. Let's try to get some more in here early in the morning on the West Coast, and pretty early in the morning on the East Coast. Medici, going back to you. Do you still see blood on the streets for a while here in altcoin land, or do you see big pumps again? People were going crazy with altcoins before this. And what are your thoughts on the BitConnect aspect of all this?
I think we might see some more sideways, maybe another big drop. But I think most of the blood has. Well, I think it's going to depend. I mean, some of these specific projects just they were just hyped up too much. I mean, and that's kind of what we saw with BitConnect, in the sense of all the warning signals were there. People warned everyone not to get on it. That this was just lending and you're making 1% a day. I mean, it was just it doesn't make any sense as to how it would work and the viability of it. And luckily, I mean, unfortunately for the people involved, but for the overall ecosystem, it was good that BitConnect was basically brought down, And so I think this is the beginning where a lot of these really bad projects that kind of have nothing to show for and just were driven by hype are going to get negatively impacted, which they have recently. And I think it's just going to get kind of more scrutinized, most of these projects. But no, I mean, I think overall the market is going to recover pretty quickly, and we're going to keep seeing the hype, and we're going to keep seeing the speculation, because I mean, people just love crypto, and they can't get enough of these, of trying to get 100% gain, 200% gain, 300% gain. And so I think it's just going to continue, and we're going to see the the bubble and the speculation just continue to increase in 2018.
I agree 100% with that. The reason being, as Crypto Medici says, there is very, very few assets out there to buy. I mean, the biggest reason Bcash trades where it does is because there's almost nothing else to buy. If you especially now that you have institutional money in there, they're just looking to buy anything they can. They look at the list, they're like, okay, we got Ethereum, that's liquid. We got Ripple, that's liquid, even though it's not even a cryptocurrency, but they put it on CoinMarketCap for some reason. And we got Bcash. Everything else is a microcap stock, according to Wall Street. So they'll buy it. They don't really care. And, in time, they're going to start to discern more and spend more of their allocation on the better projects, starting with Bitcoin. But for now, and probably for the foreseeable future, I mean, you saw yesterday, I mean, Ripple was up like 80% and all the crap was up 60, 50%. As soon as they sense that this thing's over, it's going to go right back to the way it was just a month ago. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I think I think it's a temporary break in the bull madness. I mean, you were talking about the illegitimacy of so many projects. When I was in San Francisco hearing about everybody's ICO, there's still some wildness out there. People still ask me how to buy ICOs, and they've yet to learn their lesson that a lot of these things are just complete nonsense. But speaking about learning lessons, Andy, what's the lesson from BitConnect here? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's an easy lesson. Don't invest in Ponzi schemes, especially when they're well-telegraphed Ponzi schemes. I mean, I don't know anything about BitConnect except that for the past year, every time someone has brought it up, from Tone Vase to the most least known tweeter, it's a Ponzi scheme. And guess what? It was a Ponzi scheme. It's very simple. When something is offered that makes no sense, as Crypto Medici says, financially, guess what? It's going to be a failure and maybe even a fraud. And that's exactly what it was. And, it goes back to the whole thing of like you say, of value your wealth in Bitcoin and your root position. I mean, yes, if you want to speculate a little, that's fine. But for people to put, vast, to get as far as to be in cryptocurrency and then say, I'm going to put the vast majority of my investments in really, really sketchy things that have a huge amount of risk is amazing to me. And if you bought BitConnect, and I've had people that have talked to me and they said, yeah, I was in this cloud mining thing and actually I made some money from it, so I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going, yeah, but look what can happen, and just did.
Yeah, there's so many people, they're like, it can't be me. It won't happen to me. The cloud mining has been great for me so far. People cannot have that attitude in this, how they haven't learned. After this, what just happened with BitConnect, if they still haven't learned, I mean, again, I said it on my last show, I don't know how they're ever going to learn. And they're still going to think they're special, that it's not going to happen to them. It's going to happen to them. Stick with the strong hand, people. Buy and hold Bitcoin. And of course, pound that like button here. So before we get into Brhodium, I want to hear, I want to jump into Crypto DeMedici real quick. You and I actually talked off air at one point about, over Twitter about Bprivate, about the Z Classic thing. You're pretty bullish on that. What are your thoughts? Anything change? You still bullish?
Yeah, well, just to add on the last conversation, I think all of this speculation, while it's going to most likely end badly, I think and we've seen this with .com. I mean, I wasn't involved in any of that, so I don't really know kind of the specifics, but I think overall the hype and the money that's being put into crypto is going to eventually, and it is right now as we see it, to help these very legitimate projects that are actually, trying to change the world and help disrupt society. But so I think there are a lot of positives to all this craze that's going to happen, and as we've seen with crypto, it's so new and we're just beginning. So you know, it's always very interesting to see how humans react to these new technologies, and they just go kind of crazy over it. Where, you know, crypto in general, I mean, we've seen it with Bitcoin scaling debate. It's not really ready for prime time, and yet prime time is here, and so that's why we have all these really bad projects just getting a ton of press and going up an insane amount, because just people don't really know, kind of, you know, they don't have the patience to wait.
Yeah, you're telling me there's a lack of long-term thinking in the space. Definitely, short-term thinkers with completely no patience. Well, okay, so let's talk some Bprivate now. Then, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think airdrops. Well, so I think Bprivate is the obviously the continuation of all these airdrops, and I think they're getting more sophisticated in the sense of now it's not enough to just do an airdrop and kind of change the name. Now you actually have to bring something new to the table, and so the C Classic is a very interesting project in the sense that it has an already existing community base. It has a very good privacy technology which comes from Zcash, and now all Bitcoin holders are going to be able to receive it, and so it's going to be. I'm very bullish in the sense that these airdrops always get a ton of playtime in the beginning, and it's going to be interesting to see if Bitcoin Private does stick around. I do think it is going to stick around, but I think for the most part it's going to depend mostly on you know, what are these big kind of institutional players going to do, if they do see a potential with Bitcoin Private, or if they don't. But as we've seen with Bitcoin Gold, which has just been insane how it's been able to kind of keep up. These airdrops, you know, I guess they're very, very popular, and there's someone that's buying them and someone that's selling them. So so I am very bullish on Bitcoin Private, and the fact that it's, you know, has that privacy enhancement. I think it's going to do very well.
It is quite unique in the crypto dividend world, and I wanted to clarify. You call it an airdrop, but to be specific, it is forked from Bitcoin. It's the airdrop is more of a term we'd use like on Brhodium, which Andy's going to talk about in a second. I didn't want to, because people are going to get confused and think they're, you know. But you mentioned Bgold. Bgold is going to become almost a test net for Bitcoin in terms of the Lightning Network and those new type of SegWit addresses. They seem to be pushing hard on that stuff kind of before it becomes quite available on Bitcoin. They're going to make it more available with Bgold than Bitcoin. Andy, do you have any thoughts on Bgold kind of developing into maybe a test net here I mean, you have said yourself that you didn't think Bgold was very unique, but this is interesting. This Lightning Network, right, and the SegWit addresses, the Beck whatever type. I don't even know what type of addresses they're called.
Right. Well, I'll say something about Bgold and then Bprivate. We'll get to Brhodium in a second.
Yeah.
Now, Bgold, when it first was proposed, I thought it was interesting. Obviously, the people that run it are good people. They are, you know, as you would say, a state in the Bitcoin states of America. There was absolutely nothing contentious about them. They did think, hey, we'll bring something new to the table. It's not dramatic what they're bringing, but it's new. And look, they did it first because really it was just Bcash at the time. They did it successfully. It is out there. It does have value. I and many others have used that value to get Bitcoin. The thing with Bgold, though, is that very rapidly that value addition went away because there are many other of these forks that have Equihash. Frankly, Bitcoin may have it one day. For all we know, it's not very novel. It doesn't discern it. So to me, I look at Bgold now and I go, it's just a counterfeit Bitcoin, just another one. It's not like a malicious one like Bcash, but that's all it is. And as for Litecoin, you know, you had Litecoin was the quote test net for Bitcoin. And even on that, I'm not even sure that really was the case. The case with Litecoin was that it had, like Bitcoin, it was around for so long. I mean, it forked off Bitcoin in 2011, that it was the only other crypto that really had a strong, secure network with a long track record. And that meant something, especially because it did have generally the same kind of value proposition as Bitcoin, and therefore it's gained a following, particularly because it's, you know, no longer patron saint Charlie Lee was one of the wisest and most respected people in crypto, and still is. But the testnet thing for Litecoin, I don't really buy that. Yes, they did get SegWit first, but the problem was not that SegWit people were really worried that it didn't work. The problem was just we didn't think we'd get it, and it was really just the fact that Charlie pushed that through that kind of provided the impetus for the Bitcoin community to push it through. But I don't think it was like people saying, "Oh, I'm really worried that it's going to work. I'm not going to commit to it until I see it work on I mean, it was only on Litecoin for like a month before we locked it in on Bitcoin. So I'm not sure I buy that. As far as the Lightning Network, I'm just worried that the Lightning Network won't work. And frankly, I don't think that aside from us, anyone really even knows Bitcoin Gold's going to have Lightning. So I think that they're just desperately trying to, create some kind of use case that doesn't exist. And I just don't see the value. Now, Bitcoin Private is interesting in many ways, especially when we talk about Brhodium. I personally think that the days of the Bitcoin fork are over. I think that failed. It is Bcash, which is probably the biggest blight of history in the history of the Bitcoin community. You have BGold, which, as I said, doesn't really do anything, and then you have a whole handful of others get supported anywhere. There's Lightning Bitcoin, which no one even knows what it is. There's Super Bitcoin. Oh, it's backed by a Chinese billionaire. You know what? It's worth almost nothing. SegWit 2x. Are you kidding me? They actually use that name. This United Bitcoin. That's Jeff Garzik, and you have to do horrible things like moving your Bitcoin around just to get it. Bitcoin Diamond. They think that if they multiply the time so that there's 210 million, that somehow is a good thing. Ridiculous. All these things are ridiculous. Now, Bprivate is trying a new way of doing things. People, you definitely have to wait for someone to split it for you, like Trezor or an exchange, which may or may not happen. Trying to do something. It's trying to, and the problem is that Zcash and Zclassic already have that use case, and Monero has that use case, and Bitcoin is going to have that use case. Private that I don't like is, yes, Rhett is a brilliant engineer, I'm sure, but he's a vehement supporter of Bcash, and there's likely going to be SegWit issues with this thing too. So hype behind it in a community, but and yes, it could be a huge gain. I mean, you were completely right to tell people to buy it. I just don't buy that there's anything going on here that's something to get excited about.
Oh, this is an interesting take. I just want to, before we get into Brhodium, do you have anything, Crypto DeMedici, do you have anything to say in reply to that? That it is, people have asked me about how Rhett is a Bcash guy also, if that has anything to do with this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, well, I think it's going to be an interesting to see, because, it is community kind of run right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how a combination of one project and another, and if the market actually cares about it. I mean, again, this goes back to kind of the phase that we're in this market, and the heavy speculation that is currently happening and that is going to continue to happen. Something like Bitcoin Private is going to be big, and like you said before with Bitcoin Gold, I think these forks, if they do stick around, are going to be great test nets. Whether that happens or whether they actually stick around for that is another is another matter to talk about.
Yeah, the fact that it is what we're learning from these forks is that they can come up with as many gimmicks as they want to, but the bottom line is they have to get on exchanges and they have to make it. They have to get in touch with Trezor and Ledger. They are the gatekeepers here, really, or else people aren't going to get a hold of these things to even trade them, and they're not going to get any momentum, and they're not. They're just going to be. I mean, they're going to be unattainable almost. But
yeah, I think Bprivate can actually do very well if they do two things right. One, if they get rid of this stupid SegWit stuff and stop pretending that it's like Bcash, okay? Because I mean, for one, no one will want to touch it, and two, there'll be anger toward it. Just be Bitcoin. Stop with your I like Bcash. Just do the SegWit addresses and be normal. And then, of course, they have to get support. Like Bdiamond or any of them need support. Trezor, yeah, Trezor does Zcash, but they don't do Bprivate. We don't even have a Bprivate yet. If that got supported, because we're not going to have privacy on Bitcoin anytime soon. That could be 2 or 3 years. That could be a really, really big investment. I mean, that could do really well, but it needs those two things.
Yeah, I'm not. It's still not clear the SegWit story with Bprivate. If everyone who's got Bitcoin as SegWit addresses is going to get Bprivate or not. It's still not clear. They've just come out with their like pre-fork timeline. So we don't even know when the fork will happen. I don't think we're going to have to worry about this stuff until next month, actually. These things usually take longer than originally thought. Andy, let's move on to a crypto dividend that you like, that a lot of people have tuned in to hear about, because you and I and also Daniel of 21 million are the only guys that seem to talk about Brhodium. So what's going on with the Brhodium and your thoughts?
Yeah, and I just checked now. They have on Discord, it's a chat room community. They have their own community. And so you just log in and you can ask questions of it's management. It's a centralized coin, just like all of them are. But these are English-speaking people, and they are very interactive. I mean, you can ask them anything. You could say I have the tiniest little issue with the registration, and they give you instructions. It really is like having a customer service. But I was just checking it because theoretically, the day that the wallet was to be available was yesterday. They just sent an email out at 2 in the morning, maybe like 7 hours ago, saying we're very close. We're just finishing the testing. So I was looking to see if it was done yet. Now, what I was saying before is, because I remember earlier last year, or late last year, when we saw Bcash and BGold, there was talk around the community about how this is going, 2018 will be the year of the hard fork, the Bitcoin hard fork. And everyone kind of agreed on that. As it turned out, it was 2017, because right after that, that's when you had like 7, 8, 9 of them. And there's still more that are in the queue that all are from that period. Everyone just swarmed in, as I said, just as a money grab, because I don't think any of them, and I mean any of them, have any use case at all other than being a money grab. But going forward in 2018, because of the failure of these, and let's face it, aside from Bcash, solely because of Roger Ver and Gian Wubi being behind it, these forks have vastly underperformed the altcoin sector. I mean, really, really underperformed during this historic hype. So what I kind of think is, and I wrote back then, I think that there's just diminished returns from all these forks, and that going forward, you're going to have to actually do something. You're going to either have to have a use case or a way to market to people to make them believe you have a use case, or else people are going to go, you're just a counterfeit Bitcoin. And that's why in some ways, the Bprivate is definitely trying to do something different. I'm not sure I would call their use case long-term viable, but it's a lot more short-term viable than any of these other forks are. So which brings me to what I think may be the future, which is airdrops. And from a Bitcoiner's perspective, the only real true free airdrop we've had with no strings attached, no issues, no risks, has been Bitcore, which is not a new coin. It was an old coin that was just distributing itself to Bitcoin holders just to get publicity. And the first round was fantastic. They gave it to us for free. If you did the work, which you, Adam, were the only person who told people about, I got it because of you, and you signed your public addresses, you got free Bitcore, which you could sell for Bitcoin or hold. And I unfortunately sold mine at $6, and now it's in the like $25 range. But the point is, it was free. It was no strings attached. You did not need to wait for it to be split or anything. And I think one of the other things these forks have showed us, aside from the fact that there's no value to them, actually the biggest reason there's no value is because no one wants to support them. They are just trading. A lot of them are still futures exchanges. They trade in these esoteric Chinese exchanges no one's ever heard of, and they wouldn't dare sending their Bitcoin to. So that's a liquidity discount. And you know that, I mean, I was told that even BDiamond, which is the furthest ahead, still is not open source and has not released their code. So there's no way that anytime soon Trezor is going to support it, let alone these Chinese ones or Jeff Garzik's ones. So you're at the point where I don't think the fork just works. It just doesn't work. And then you have BGold, which worked, but it just kind of sits there doing nothing. And then you got Bcash, which is like a cancer on the Bitcoin community. In the case of airdrops, though, which is what Brhodium is, it's like Bitcore, except it's starting a new coin. Bitcore was giving out their own coin. Brhodium is a new coin, and it's not a fork. The reason it's Bitcoin Rhodium is not simply because they're taking their name. They are taking, it's in a way like a fork in that it's mostly the same protocols. It's not like they took the Bitcoin chain, said, we're going to start our own chain with almost the same code. We are going to have equal hash mining. So that's B gold being subsumed right there. And instead of having, and we're going to have privacy, I'm not sure how that works. Is it Zcash or Monero, whatever it is, some kind of, I don't expect there to be many transactions in it, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to have just, instead of 21 million coins or 210 million for B Diamond, just 2.1 million coins will ever be existed. And only half of that will be in existence at the launch, which will be today. Most of it is going to be from airdropping it to existing Bitcoin holders. The other million coins will take 100 years to mine, like Bitcoin. So again, brand new coin, no fork. All you need to do is have it supported, which I assure you, it will be supported on exchanges. They say in early February. I'll bet it'll come out. It'll be on 10 exchanges. That's not going to be a problem. They just needed to make sure they got the wallet right, the registration right, the airdrop right, which is all going to be occurring sometime later today. We'll see if it works smoothly. And I have no reason to believe it won't, because believe me, if it happens smoothly, I think it's the end of the Bitcoin hard fork and the beginning of the airdrop, which is, remember, you've been saying all along, I'm begging you people, someone come out with some tool that can split all these coins safely. This is the tool, not splitting them at all. Having airdrops where you simply sign your public addresses and are given the coins for free.
Yeah, that would be a solution right there. Definitely. And we probably are going to go in that direction if this is successful. And and if Trezor and Ledger are as strict as they have been, and they should be strict. They shouldn't let everybody and their mother put a fork on their storage device. They don't have the manpower to worry about that stuff. Crypto DeMedici, I don't know if you're have thoughts on Brhodium at all, or any more on the airdrop versus regular fork. You could talk about altcoins, anything you want to bring up that's even a little bit related, because I know you know a lot about the altcoin market, but I don't know if you even care about this all this forkage that's going on.
No, I haven't heard about it, but it is interesting to see. Well, one, the power that Bitcoin has as a community, and in the fact that they have all these forks and now airdrops that are happening, which are just going to continue to, like you've said, it's these dividends that are going to continue to benefit Bitcoin holders. And as we've seen, these projects learn from the failures and from some others that have been able to kind of stand the test of time when it comes to the value. And so I think the projects and these airdrops and forks are just going to become more sophisticated. And they're always going, I mean, I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon, because, you know, the sophistication is just going to increase. And I think it's way too powerful to be able to give something to a community as strong as Bitcoin and see how it works. And I think, you know, all of these projects in crypto are just, they're just experiments on human psychology and human governance. And so these airdrops, you know, are the same thing, and into kind of figuring out how these experiments run and if it works or not. And we're starting to see that as well with other alts, in the sense that they're beginning to get forked off or airdrops. But, you know, this goes back to the whole speculation thing. You know, it's mostly focused on speculation and making money in the short term. But I think this is all good experiments that will help the community overall in the future.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that people are going to learn from this is that most of the coins out there, I mean, it really is just like the .com, where right at the top, all these companies came out which weren't really companies. And people will in time discern the real companies from the not real companies. And believe me, there's a lot more not real ones than real, especially when you see a bunch of these. They all run into the top 10. These brand new ones, don't even know what the heck they are. But believe me, there are going to be monstrous winners. I mean, if you look at, you know, the peak of the .com bubble, and then you look 15 years later, the biggest winners in the .com space, very few of them were even around at the time. I mean, Amazon was around at the time, and Amazon wasn't really a success until 10 years after, at least 10 years after the .com bubble. Facebook came up afterwards. Even Apple was, I don't know if you call it an internet company, but they were certainly not a big player back then. And you know, Google or Twitter, a whole bunch of names that weren't around became big winners. Back then, the amount of names that are big winners now, I don't even know if eBay counts anymore. They've been subsumed by Craigslist, let alone all the other online things that are out there. So people just have to be very careful, because once the hype goes away in the altcoin sector, you're going to see a lot of wreckage. And it's, again, we talk about Bitcoin. Back in 2000, the internet didn't crash. The dot-coms crashed. Bitcoin is the internet right now. Bitcoin's not crashing. Bitcoin is not going anywhere. It's what's around it that's going to crash, except for the really, really good ones. And man, are there going to be some good ones, some of which haven't even been invented yet.
Very good point. And I want to say, Crypto DeMedici kind of pointed out, this shows the strength of the Bitcoin brand too. I mean, that everybody wants to fork Bitcoin. That's the name they're trying to borrow and play off of here. I mean, it's people aren't trying to create new versions of, let's say, Litecoin. Not that there's anything wrong with Litecoin, but Bitcoin is the one. Now, speaking of altcoins and altcoins of interest, altcoins of the future, Crypto DeMedici is a trader dude out there. He hears all sorts of things. Any altcoin thoughts? Any specific ones you wanted to talk about?
Well, just I'll answer that in a bit. But I liked what Andy was saying in the sense that I think the big winners have yet to come out, or in the sense that the industry itself is extremely new. So I think a lot of people that are entering the market now are just looking to make money short term, but really the big money is to be patient, to learn about the industry, to figure out the different projects and figure out kind of where the market is heading, and just get a good sense and become an expert basically in the industry, because the opportunities are just going to keep popping up, and you don't want to ride this speculation wave and end up buying the top and then kind of completely destroying your net worth. So people just have to be patient and understand that this is a very new industry, and it's just going to continue to grow, and that also means that it's going to be extremely volatile, as we've seen, in the last few days. But that's what's exciting about crypto, is that it's just beginning, and we've already seen the things that it could change in the world, and what it's going to end up doing, which we can't even imagine. But yeah, going back to the alts, I think so my three trends is privacy. I think privacy assets are going to do very well. The privacy sector is extremely undervalued. You see something like Monero, which I think it's at around maybe 5 billion, 4 billion. It should be top 5 at least. And so I think the privacy sector in general is going to do very well in the next few months. So any privacy assets, I think, will do well. Platforms will also do well, as we've seen with Ethereum. The platform, I think, and now a lot of companies are going to start moving into platforms and more, and this kind of feeds off of the speculation where we're going to have more of these forks and airdrops within platforms that are going to be created to kind of help build the platforms. Platform winners is going to be very difficult, just because that would require, I mean, as we've seen with Ethereum has done very well, but for something else to build a platform like Ethereum is going to be very, very difficult. I don't think the industry is big enough to support another platform like Ethereum at the moment. But I do think the trend is going to be pretty big in 2018. And then the last one is masternodes. Everyone's looking for a quick, passive income type of opportunity, and these masternodes offer just that. Whether it's going to continue to happen or not, but so I think masternode cryptocurrencies are going to do very well as well.
Interesting that you say masternodes, because people want a passive income from their cryptos. Again, if they just hold Bitcoin, they're going to get these fork coins eventually, and there's your passive income. That's a real simple way of doing that. I don't think a lot of people realize that, and you're probably right. You're probably right about the masternode things that people will want, that they won't realize that there's a simple answer out there already. What you said about platforms is very interesting too, because in San Francisco, the San Francisco conference I was at, everybody wanted to make an ICO, and some of the people who helped fund these things said that, we'll give you funding if you build it on Ethereum, but if you try to build it on one of these other platforms, you're not going to be looked upon very highly. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them. These other platforms that want to challenge Ethereum, where they want to build. I mean, they can say we're the Chinese Ethereum, we're the next Ethereum, but they're just not established. There's just not the trust out there. And in the end of the day, people who are building things on these platforms want funding. They want money, and it appears to me from talking to funding people, from getting a glimpse into the horrifying ICO space, that you're not going to be looked upon very highly if you're not using Ethereum. You got to be using Ethereum if you want to play in this building on ICO type of space. But I'm sorry for interrupting you, but you brought up some really interesting points that I hadn't really thought of yet. Continue, please.
No, I mean, yeah, that was it. But yeah, and I think the industry is still way too new, and there's really not enough big players to really make a big push for another platform. But you know, that goes to show just the beauty of how early we are in the game, and how eventually in the next few years, whether this hype and this speculation kind of bubble pops or not, we are going to see more companies investing in these types of platforms. And you know, as we've seen with Ethereum has come out with really interesting projects, decentralized exchanges, and you know, obviously a lot of this is just based on the hype, but we have seen that platforms are a very interesting way to go down, and so I do think that's going to continue to go. But for the most part, this year in 2018 is just it's going to be pure speculation, and so the way that I figure out which investments are going to do well, it's just figuring out kind of what the trends are going to be and what's kind of undervalued. But that also is a legitimate project that I do think is going to stick around, because once the music stops playing, it's going to be, as we've seen in the last few days, it's going to be very, very bad.
Yeah, there are going to be more weeks like this, and there's eventually going to be a week where a lot of these altcoins will be gone forever, in the sense that, you know, BitConnect is now gone forever. It's still listed, but I mean, it's basically gone. And again, your point about this right now, it's so early on that everything is built upon speculation. This is what a free market is all about. People are free to come up with any ideas they want to. The next Ethereum, the Chinese Ethereum, the Hong Kong Ethereum, whatever gimmick they want, they're free to throw it out there, and they're free to hype it up, and everyone can get behind it. But in the end of the day, because I remember the .com, most of it ends up just speculation, just wishes, and you're not able to do what you said you were going to do. And right now, Ethereum is actually doing something. Like them or hate them, they're doing something in that space. They dominate that space, and for anyone to top them is going to be hard. For anyone to dream of topping them, well, there's a lot of dreamers out there, and there's a lot of people willing to bet on them and speculate on them. There's a lot of people willing to bet and speculate on coins that say they're going to beat Bitcoin also. So we're definitely in that stage where we've got the dreamers and the hypers and the speculation. But hey, man, that is what this free market is about. No one's here to bail you out. You got to decide on your own. I say buy and hold Bitcoin, and just pound that like button. Andy,
you know what, Adam, I'll just add on this. This is very interesting. Now, I'm not going to comment on master nodes because, as a layman, I mean, I have no concept of this. So I have no opinion. But of the other two, I will say privacy is very, very interesting to me, because I think that this is going to be the wave of the future is privacy, including Bitcoin. I mean, I remember when my first one-on-one guest, it was like 2 days into having Crypto Gold Central. In fact, I think it was the day of the Chinese ban. So everything was going crazy. And I asked Charlie about privacy on Bitcoin. And again, we had just locked in SegWit only a few weeks earlier. And he said, no, that's a few years away. All the efforts of Bitcoin now are going to be focused on scaling, you know, Lightning and all those kind of things. So while, yes, ultimately privacy is theoretically subsumable by Bitcoin, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And I doubt that Bitcoin will ever be fully private like Monero. I just, that would be really a cool future where you have the best money and wealth storage and it's completely anonymous. That may happen, but I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. So yes, privacy is certainly something that is to be watched. And from the way I understand it, and I don't understand much, Monero is like way out there in the lead in this space. to the point where it's almost difficult. You have to become an expert to use it because it's so private. And so I think that's really a cool thing at the price that it's at, because I don't think it's going away. Now, Bprivate and Zcash, I've heard all kinds of different things. I'm not going to have an opinion other than that I think privacy is going to be something people are definitely going to be focusing on, especially as governments get more and more draconian in trying to stop crypto. And as for platform, Ethereum is the most interesting one of all, because if you listen to Tone Vays, who's very, very knowledgeable, and he is saying it's going to end, it's completely going to collapse one day. So I'm not sure I understand. There's obviously one part of the world that thinks this thing is going to go away completely. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum, like what you guys are talking about, it has no competitors. I mean, give me a break. Yes, Bitcoin with Rootstock is going to create its own platform, but literally just like, I mean, look, Bitcoin is uncompetable in the wealth storage place. But Ethereum is not uncompetable, but they have such a monstrous lead in this that even if Bitcoin is doing it, it's going to take some time, if at all, to build up to that level of market share. So it's a really interesting thing. But what it comes down to is when you're valuing Ethereum at, it was up to $135 billion, that's assuming that nothing bad's going to happen to it. So while it's probably going to be awesome investment as long as crypto's fine for a long time because it's big and liquid and has a big lead, I'm curious to see what will happen with Ethereum over time. Will it become what Yahoo did in the space when Google took it over, or will it simply be Google all the way through?
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see this. I could say with pretty much a lot of confidence that Ethereum will be around for quite some time. I mean, again, getting a glimpse into the ICO space, there's a lot of token madness built around Ethereum. A couple people might have been talking about building on some other platforms, but I mean, these other people speculating on other platforms, if they attended the event that I was at, and if they were smart, they would be like, why am I even invested in this other competitor to Ethereum? Everybody is using Ethereum now. And
a lot of those are in the top 10. Like, what are the other big platform players, crypto?
There is... So the one that I like is Komodo, and that's way down. But there's like Neos trying to do it, Cardano.
Cardano is the one, that's their gimmick, the next Ethereum, the Ethereum killer. I mean,
right.
come on now. Just come again. There's got gimmicks, so people get behind that, and
it's in the top 10. So that's some pretty high expectations for Cardano quote stock.
Yeah, and that project, they haven't even released their mainnet yet. I mean, so most of these, so like Cardano, it's a very interesting project in the sense that it has some very strong development teams working for it, but it's still so new that it hasn't really shown what it can do. And unfortunately, with this whole hype bubble, it's just all these projects, anything that seems like it might do very well in the future is just growing disproportionate to what it actually should be growing.
Yeah, this is an interesting aspect of
it. Well, and what you were saying with Ethereum and also Bitcoin with Rootstock, I think most of these projects, in particular the top ones, the ones that have done very well in the sense of they have pretty legitimate backing and developers, is they don't really know their identity. They don't kind of, there's so much that could happen. So like you see with Bitcoin, there's so much that can happen within the sense of, storage of value and transactions and Lightning Network and Rootstock and privacy that, and also you see with Ethereum people don't really know kind of where it's actually going to end up going. Is it just going to stay as a store of value, or is it going to also do something like Ethereum? And so I think that's what's so interesting, is that we don't really know, how many tokens are actually going to be available in the future, and who's going to use what, and how that's all going to work out. And so it's funny because, everyone acts as if they know what's going to end up happening, but really nobody has any idea what's going to end up happening.
That's a good point. We could never have predicted crypto dividends at the beginning of last year. At the beginning of 2017, who knows what madness 2018 is going to bring.
I know one thing we could predict that'll definitely happen. Bitcoin will never have a competitor in the storage of value space.
Oh yeah, I think they've won that game. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's. I mean, they're the established one. They're the gold. They're the world reserve cryptocurrency. I don't know if anyone. There'll be people out there creating FUD trying to say otherwise. Of course, I mean they're free to make all the crypto noise they want to, and people have a strong hand. There's been a lot of crypto noise this last week. You got to really be able to tune that stuff out. All right, so Tawanda Kembo, I don't know where he is. I wish we could talk about Zimbabwe. We're going to have to do that another week. But we have had some fascinating altcoin talk, fork talk, crypto dividend talk, Bitcoin talk, strong hand talk. Check out these guys' links below, and Tawanda's link is below. Also, check out the last show that I did. I finally got back to my regular format late on Thursday night. That is linked to below. It was a very good show, but it just happened 12 hours ago, so a lot of you have missed it. So check that out. So let's go to stories that I've left out and final thoughts. Crypto DeMedici, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. Anything you want to add, any story of the week, anything that I left out, and anything you want to promote, give it away. Talk about it.
Well, I appreciate you, inviting me. I always like being on the show, and I think just the last takeaways is for people to be very careful with these with their investments and the projects that they're getting into, and don't rush into the market trying to make money, but instead rush to learn about it and to get very familiar with it. As we've seen with the last few days, it can be very, very harmful for your money and kind of the assets that you put your money in. And so, everyone be very careful, and also, go enter the market with a very curious mind and understand the market very well before you really start putting in big money into it, because crypto is ruthless, and it will chop your head off if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. There's no bailout. This is where the big boys play, people. And all the BitConnect people just realized there's no bailout. You must learn. Again, when I was in San Francisco at the conference, there were a lot of ICO people. I'm telling you, a lot of them probably did not know what a Trezor was. I know that. They didn't know how to send the Bitcoin. They just jumped right in, tried to raise some money with an ICO. I would not go that route. I wouldn't try to be involved with anyone like that. Try to learn the basics, people. Learn to send the Bitcoin before you buy a Litecoin. I know that sounds really basic, but a lot of people have skipped that step. Andy, thoughts, closing arguments?
Well, that Bitcoin Litecoin thing is perfect. And I think the most important, well, two things I'll say is, one, again, in 2000 or 1999, there was the internet and there was the dot-coms. And if you theoretically could have owned the internet, you would have been spared all the damage. In fact, if you, for instance, during 2008, if you had just owned physical gold instead of owning mining stocks, it's the same kind of thing. You would have done just fine. It would have been worth the investment to watch everything crash while physical gold really was fine. And in this case, unlike the dot-coms, you actually can own the internet, or as Andreas would call it, the internet of money. There is absolutely not a thing wrong with Bitcoin. There's no fears of what may happen. It doesn't really matter what the South Korean government does or what the Chinese government does. The Bitcoin network is as strong as it's ever been. It's getting stronger each day. All these technological advancements that we've been talking about, they're here already. The Schnorr signature paper out yesterday. Lightning Network, there's not an hour that goes by I don't see a new article about how it's being tested everywhere. These things are moving really fast, the decentralized networks, the BISC and the alt.io, these things are coming hot and heavy, huge amounts of venture capital dollars going into them. That is not going to stop. These problems are going to be resolved quickly. In fact, I tweeted yesterday and wrote an article today about it. I said that 2017, the major story was SegWit. It was the battle for SegWit, and ultimately the seminal event was the locking in of SegWit in mid-July and the activation in August. I think that this year, the big story is going to be how fast the Bitcoin network is at year end compared to the way it is right now. I just see the advancements so quick that when you think about people who are still talking about, oh, Bitcoin's got problems, and it always comes back to Roger Ver and Bcash, who, talk about pot calling the kettle black. I was talking to Rock yesterday. No one's using Bcash at all right now. whereas Bitcoin keeps getting more and more used. The story is going to be at the end of the year, no one's going to be able to say Bitcoin is too slow and too expensive, because it's going to be faster and cheaper. And so that's something to keep an eye on. And remember, you can speculate in altcoins and you may do incredibly well. Although, as you learned this week, you better be pretty nimble too. But if you own the root coin, not only are you going to get your crypto dividends, but you're going to have the least amount of risk. And in a very nascent, risky sector in general, that's a pretty good way to start. And as Adam says, certainly you don't want to be dealing with altcoins until you don't even know how to deal with the easiest one of all, Bitcoin. And as for this correction, again, I mean, people didn't really think it was going to go up forever. We went from 5,500 on November 12th to 20,000 on December 17th. And in Korea, they actually were trading it for like 25,000. So you had a 4 to 5x increase in an already pretty big asset in a month. So to think that it wasn't going to come down, and again, Bitcoin heavily underperformed. I mean, I don't even want to know how much Cardano went up during that time. Would it go up like 25,000%? Things come back down once they go up, when they go up that fast. So just relax, realize that at 11,500, 12,000, we're 12 times higher than we were a year ago. And that everything going on in the Bitcoin network and admin and community is as strong as it's ever been. So relax and hodl, you will be fine.
Yeah, that's a good way to end the show. The fundamentals are there, people. Have a strong hand. Tune out the crypto noise. Check out the link section below. Follow these guys on Twitter. Pound that like button. So that's it for the show today. We'll be back next Friday. Who knows at what time? It always varies, but This Week in Bitcoin is here every Friday to sum up the week in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And again, I post a new show here every single day, no matter if I'm in the airport in Taipei or I'm in San Francisco or Los Angeles. You can count on it being here. So I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share this video, check out the notes section below. I'll see you later. I'll say hi to you in the chat. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks a lot, guys. All right.